I think our products benefit society. We all use them every day, every night, whether we stop to think about it or not. Our plants run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It takes a dedicated workforce.
Let's talk about talent. How is LYB ensuring that we have the right talent to really support continuous plant operations and deliver these essential materials both today and in the future?
We have, intern programs or co-op cooperative education programs. I was a co-op when I started at Channelview, and we like to use those programs where we get to spend more time with people before we actually decide to make them an offer.
Because you can see if it's a good fit for both
We can see if it's a good fit.
person and the company, right? To have those early hands-on experiences.
Absolutely. I learned much more at the plant when I could go out and, see the equipment firsthand, and talk to the people who were true experts in their job functions.
Welcome to the LYB podcast. I'm Deepi Sidhu. Today, I'm joined by Mark Bookmyer, a seasoned leader here at LyondellBasell with over 35 years of experience in the chemical and manufacturing industry. This episode is actually the first of our three-part manufacturing series. In our conversation today, we'll be talking with Mark about his career, the evolution of manufacturing, the critical roles in our industry, and how LYB is preparing for the future. Let's get started. Welcome in, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk. Well, you and I have met several times before, but let's share a little bit about yourself. Give us your background here at LYB, what you do, and basically your career here.
I started at the Channelview site, actually working for a resident maintenance contractor, Austin Industrial, and I worked for 2 years as an electrician's helper back during the summers when I was going to college. But my first full day with the company was January 7th, 1991. And most of my background is in manufacturing. I have worked at a number of the Gulf Coast manufacturing sites. Now I'm currently the site manager at Porte, and I've been in this role for 3 years.
Okay, you've been a little bit all over the place, but quite a vast career here in manufacturing. There are many different types of manufacturing, and chemical manufacturing is obviously one of the largest manufacturing industries globally. So for our listeners who may not be familiar, what does manufacturing look like here at LYB, and what types of jobs does it entail?
Good question. LyondellBasell, I'll say this first off, is a manufacturing company. We have many sites spread across the world, and we produce materials or products that we sell for a profit. So, I want to stress that we are a manufacturing company, and, we produce chemicals. So we take molecules and we bring them into our manufacturing sites, and then we rearrange those molecules purposefully to make them more valuable. And then we'll sell those materials or products, the rearranged molecules, to other companies that will turn those into final products and sell to customers. Our plants run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It takes a dedicated workforce, people that are willing to work shift work, people that are willing to answer the phone and respond to problems every day of the week at any time. Our plants are staffed 100% of the work week, so there are people producing the chemicals, at all times. And in addition to the operations staffs, we have maintenance staffs that are very dedicated employees, and they can be called out in the middle of the night, weekends, at any time, and they selflessly go to the facilities and make repairs or do what work is needed to keep them operating so that we can keep producing the products that we sell for a profit. We have many engineers of different disciplines, chemical, mechanical, electrical, so some of the engineering functions. We have security that mans the gates. We have health, safety, and environmental personnel that make sure that we work safely, that we comply with environmental regulations. We have accounting folks that help us monitor the cost at the facilities. We have a training organization that helps us onboard and train personnel to make sure that the workforce is skilled and able to perform at a high level.
Mark, tell us how the work done at our manufacturing sites connects to the products that LYB makes and also to the customers it serves.
The manufacturing sites are where the products are produced. Not only do we manufacture the products, we ship them. So we ship them to the customers, so they receive them from us. But as far as these materials or products, how do they connect with customers? These are the products that people use every day in their life. When I think about a world with only raw materials, if I think about raw wood, not treated wood, or rocks or dirt or water or air, natural materials, and then I think about how we live every day. I think about the automobiles that we drive, that the places where we're at today, conducting business, where we live. But I look at the tags on my clothes. Most everything's synthetic, and all of these synthetic materials are produced by the chemical industry. Now, I will say, not many people, I think, stop and reflect on where do all these synthetic materials originate, but they originate with the chemical industry.
How has the chemical industry really evolved over the years from a technology perspective?
If you ask different people, they'll give you different answers, but I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll say digitally, it's evolved tremendously. When I started at the Channelview plant in 1991. There was not a computer at the Channelview plant. I remember seeing the first four portable computers arrive at the plant, and I was very fascinated by these boxes that only the managers were able to use. So work took place at the plant because when you left the plant, you were disconnected from the plant. But as technology has evolved with computers and digitization and mobile devices, now people are connected, you know, um, essentially every day, every night. Doesn't matter where you're at in the world. The other change that I think is very positive is I've seen many advances in health, safety, and environmental areas. And I talk about just personal protective equipment. When I started, many people they would show up to work in their blue jeans and a t-shirt. But now people that go out in the plant have to wear flame retardant clothing. And when I started, people would get a pair of cloth gloves. But today, we have many different types of gloves. They're designed for certain jobs. Some are chemical resistant, some are cut resistant, but we didn't have those type of things when I started. And when I think about keeping the chemicals contained inside the equipment, there's been many advances in the we'll call it the connections, whether it be piping connections, tubing connections, pump seals, but the machinery or the equipment, its ability to keep the chemicals contained is far better than it was when I first started. Safety performance continues to improve because of the advances. So those are very positive changes, and we will continue on that trajectory, into the future. I'm confident we will get better as a company and an industry.
Speaking of getting better and switching gears a bit, let's talk about talent. How is LYB ensuring that we have the right talent to really support continuous plant operations and deliver these essential materials both today and in the future?
Well, talent for manufacturing sites, we have numerous ways that we hire people. Specifically for our hourly employees, we typically hire them in the local geographic area where the manufacturing sites are located. And we have a very high demand for our jobs. If we post a job for 10 operators, I'll tell you within 2 days we'll have 500 to 1,000 people apply. And because people understand these are very good jobs. Um, so we don't have a challenge filling those positions. When we hire hourly people, whether it be operators or maintenance crafts, we don't allow them to just go to work. They have to they go through an apprentice or certification process. So when we hire them, we are going to train them, and it's going to take several months of training before we allow them to go out to an individual production unit. And once they go to the production units, then they have to be certified to work each and every job in the units. And that's typically a 9 to 12-month process. There are different levels of certification. So typically we go through an S1, S2, S3, S4 is our top level at most of our manufacturing sites. But all of the operators have to be recertified also. It's not a one and done uh, event because we want to make sure people stay competent because our units change. We have to modify the units to make them better over time. we have to make sure people stay current with the changes. And that's to keep our assets competitive against our competition. Maintenance craftsmen, same thing. We hire them with certifications or accreditations, and then we monitor their progress similar to operations. Salaried individuals, we'll hire from all over the country. We're looking for, we recruit out of various universities, but we will look for people out of, good universities from around the country, or if we have a targeted need, we'll go try to find an experienced person from anywhere that we think we need to go to get them, to bring them in to help us be successful.
That may have touched into my next question, which was basically about the strategies. Like, what are some of those strategies to build a strong talent pipeline, both internally and externally? I think you touched a little bit on the recruiting, but what else can you tell us about that?
Well, one of the things we do to try to make sure we get the right talent is we have, intern programs or cooperative education programs. I was a co-op when I started at Channelview, and I think those are fabulous programs where we can bring in salaried personnel, and we get them for a term. The work term is 3 or 4 months, depending if it's a fall or spring or a summer term. But we get to work with individuals over a prolonged period of time, and then that way we get to evaluate them, and they get to evaluate the company. So we like to use those programs where we get to spend more time with people before we actually decide to make them an offer.
Because then you can see if it's a good fit for both
We can see if it's a good fit.
person and the company, right? To have
Yeah.
those early hands-on experiences.
Absolutely.
Mark, you mentioned you were a co-op yourself. What do you remember from your experience?
Well, when I was a co-op,
co-op.
two terms at Channelview, I feel like I learned just as much during my two co-op terms as I did, I'll say, with 5 years of college. I hope that doesn't sound bad, but, you know, college was great. It's a lot of theory, it's a lot of, technical items. It's very good, but there's only so much I could learn as a chemical engineer sitting in a classroom. And it was because we didn't have the equipment, the machinery, and, looking at a book, and this was a long time ago. We didn't have all the digital things we have today, but, I learned much more at the plant when I could go out and, see the equipment firsthand, and talk to the people who were true experts in their job functions. And then another item I thought was very beneficial to learn as a co-op was how to interact with people, the people dynamics of how operations interacts with maintenance, and how engineering interacts with operations and maintenance, and what, the different roles and responsibilities at a manufacturing site. And I don't think you can replicate that in a classroom that's, 300 miles away from a chemical plant, or farther away. So there's very good, good things to learn, I think, by being present at a manufacturing site.
And you got to learn whether or not you wanted a career in manufacturing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I chose to work in manufacturing.
All right. For someone who's listening and considering a career in manufacturing, what's one thing that you want them to know about the impact this work can have?
Well, I'm going to give you two answers. Everybody that works for LyondellBasell is old enough to have lived through COVID-19. And in COVID-19, for the right reasons, many people work from home, or stayed home, worked from home, had 6 feet social distancing or whatever the requirements were at the time. But many people needed to go to work. And I'll try to highlight that. And let's think about a world if the people that make the electricity all decide to work from home, and a world where the people that make our drinking water all decide to work from home, and if the police all decide to work from home, and the people that deliver food, whether it be truck drivers or grocery stores, all decide to work from home, we wouldn't like sitting at home in the dark with nothing to eat or drink very long. So the chemical industry, the LyondellBasell, what we do, we manufacture the material that's used to package food. If you think about plastic bottles or the wraps on meat, or if you go to a fast food restaurant, whether you get a cup or how your food's packaged, we're involved in that. We make the materials that go into the vehicles. Doesn't matter if it's an electric vehicle or a fossil fuel burning engine, but the vehicles that transport the food. And we make the materials that make all of the, I'll call it devices that are used to run a power plant. Our materials are used to make those facilities. We make the material that doctors use in the hospitals. If you think about shot syringes, IV bags, tubing, bandages, the gowns, we make all that stuff. So, we're infrastructure critical, and those other, none of this would work if the infrastructure critical industries don't stay up and running. So, what's it mean for the future? I think LyondellBasell is an infrastructure critical, company, and the world is going to need our products. I think our products benefit society. We all use them every day, every night, whether we stop to think about it or not. And, the chemical industry, I think, is an industry that does good things for society. And whatever the issues are of the future, I don't know how they're going to get solved without the chemical industry playing a key role in that. So, I would say manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, I would say it's very important, and it's not going to go away.
Well, thanks so much, Mark, for the conversation and for helping us kick off our manufacturing series. It's been an enlightening conversation. And that's going to wrap up another episode of the LYB podcast. To learn more about manufacturing at LYB, visit lyb.com and be sure to subscribe to the LYB podcast so you don't miss a future episode. Thanks so much for listening.